Okay, so what if I told you there's this collection of stories? Stories so powerful, they've been passed down, traveling the globe for almost 2,000 years. Yeah, seriously. And these aren't just any old fables. They actually hold a secret recipe for what makes a story truly immortal. And today, we're going to crack it open. It all kicks off with this simple but kind of impossible question. It's the exact problem that tormented an ancient king who, had everything you could ever want, except for sons who were willing to learn. His desperate search for an answer is what led to one of the most influential books in all of history. So, let's set the scene. Our story begins in the southern kingdom of Maharopia with a good, wise king named Amarashakti. He was a great ruler, loved by his people, totally respected, but at home, behind closed doors, he was facing a pretty deep and personal crisis. And this was the source of it: his three sons, Bahu Shakti, Ugra Shakti, and Ananta Shakti. But let's be honest, the king had his own name for them. He called them ignorant blockheads. And he wasn't wrong. They were lazy, completely foolish, and had zero interest in learning anything. Every tutor he hired, total failure. These kids were, for all intents and purposes, unteachable. So the king, at his wit's end, calls in his council of ministers, supposedly the cleverest men in the kingdom. But they basically offered him no hope at all. They just laid it all out. Look, grammar alone takes 12 years to master. Law, even longer. And that's before you even think about philosophy, science, or the arts. Their final conclusion was pretty blunt. Teaching these princes? Yeah, it's an impossible task. Right when the king was about to give up all hope, this one minister, Sumati, steps up. He makes this great point. The princes don't need years of memorizing rules. They need worldly wisdom. And he says, I know just the guy for the job. And this right here is where our story takes a really interesting turn. Meet Vishnu Sharma. He's an 80-year-old teacher, famous for his incredible skill. So he's brought to the palace, and he makes this absolutely wild promise. He says he's not going to teach grammar or law. Nope, he's going to teach the art of living wisely. So you have these two totally different ideas right here. On one side, you've got the ministers who see this long, grueling, decades-long slog of formal education. And on the other side, you have Vishnu Sharma, who's proposing this radical shortcut, a 6-month crash course in practical wisdom, taught completely through stories. And get this, the stakes were absolutely insane. We're talking life or death. Vishnu Sharma basically made a bet with his own life. He had just 6 months, 6, to turn these ignorant blockheads into wise young men. And if he failed, the king had permission to have him executed. I mean, talk about an audacious claim. The king, of course, offered him a huge reward, 100 villages. But Vishnu Sharma just waved it away. He said, I will not sell learning. At 80 years old, he didn't need the money. His only goal was to do what everyone else thought was impossible. For him, this wasn't a job, it was a mission. So what was in this crazy curriculum? What kind of stories could possibly pull off a miracle like this? Well, Vishnu Sharma took the princes into a world that wasn't governed by the rules of the court, but by the rules of the jungle. And this is the absolute key to understanding the Panchatantra. It's not just a cute world of talking animals. As the original text puts it, Fable is a completely different country. Think of it like a special zone, somewhere between our world and the wild, with its own very specific set of laws. In this world, the animals are basically just mirrors of us. Sure, they can be generous, but they can also be incredibly greedy, cunning, and jealous. These are not your simple bedtime stories with a nice, tidy moral at the end. These are brutal lessons in strategy and survival. They teach you that the world is a dangerous place and, most importantly, that the weak can absolutely use their wits to beat the strong. Now, to keep these lazy princes hooked, Vishnu Sharma used this absolutely brilliant trick. He nested stories inside of other stories, kind of like those Russian dolls. Just when you think one story is wrapping up, a character in that story starts telling another one. It just pulls you deeper and deeper into this amazing web of tales. And just like that, it worked. The princes became wise. But the story of the Panchatantra itself? Oh, that was just getting started. Because these tales didn't just stay put in India. They began this incredible journey all across the known world. The reason they traveled so far is captured perfectly in this line. There's this idea that stories have a life force. And while countless other ancient texts have just been lost to time, these tales were different. They were fierce survivors. I mean, just look at this journey. They start in India around the 3rd century. Then, by 550 AD, a Persian king hears about these wisdom tales and is so fascinated he has them translated. From there, they're reborn in Arabic as Kalila wa Dimna, named after the 2 main jackal characters, and become a massive hit in the Arab world. And from there, through tons of translations, they finally make their way into Europe. Just think about that for a second. Books can burn. Entire empires rise and then crumble to dust. But these stories, they just kept going. They hopped from mind to mind, from language to language, culture to culture, proving to be way more resilient than the civilizations that carried them. It's incredible. Which, of course, brings us to today. What does a collection of ancient fables about scheming jackals and clever rabbits have to do with our world? Well, as it turns out, a whole lot. It all comes back to this one big question. What's the secret sauce? What's the magic formula here? Why do we still feel a pull toward these tales told so many centuries ago? So here it is, the recipe for an immortal story. First, you have to tap into a fundamental human desire. We all love to see the underdog win, not with brute force, but with cleverness. Second, you have to speak to that primal part of us, the part that instinctively understands the world can be a jungle. And finally, you use a structure, like these nested stories, that is just so captivating you can't help but listen. Seriously, their influence is so profound, you can find their DNA everywhere. The cunning trickster, the foolish but powerful ruler, the brave little guy who wins against all odds. These are themes that echo in so many of our modern stories, from cartoons to blockbuster movies. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. The Panchatantra was designed to teach practical wisdom for navigating a really dangerous world. So what are its lessons telling us now? In our own modern jungle of challenges and competition, what can we still learn from the tales of the Fable Forest?